Great. And question one, what do you want to hold on to forever?
Oh, hmm. I would have to say, I guess, my big heart. I want to hold on to that forever, and I don't want anything to like make me feel like I have to make my heart smaller or make me feel like I can't have a deep capacity for love, empathy, and compassion. And I think I just really want to keep that forever.
When would you have liked a second chance?
um, hmm. So a little while ago, I quit my job. Um, and at the time, I was like, yeah, quitting my job is the right thing to do. It's the right direction I want to take my life in. But I wish I could have had the opportunity to go back and just like do things a little differently before I left. Not necessarily not quit, but do things differently before I left. So I wish I had a second chance to like prepare myself a little bit more for what life was like, and what I would be doing, you know, not at my job.
Yeah, cool. What challenges inspired your resilience? What challenges inspired moments of creativity?
Um, so I think what challenges moments of creativity is me feeling stuck. If I ever feel stuck somewhere, I'm really just like, I used to be like, oh, I got to do everything to get unstuck. And it wasn't until I was like, listen, I'm stuck in this position. I get that I'm stuck and it's okay to be stuck. Like, I can figure out how to get myself like unstuck. I just need to admit to myself that it's okay and I am stuck. So like when I'm having like writer's block or when I feel like I can't paint or create or something like that, it's because I feel stuck in like too much in the non-creative side of my brain. And so those moments are like, oh, I haven't created something in a while. I really need to create something, but I'm stuck in this way. So what can I do to get out of being stuck here? And then what was the other question again? I think it was two parts.
Yeah, I mean, you answered it really, but what challenges inspired moments of creativity?
And then resilience, I feel like there have just been times in my life where I've come face to face with really painful things that have happened to me, and I have not let them define me. I have learned lessons, deep universal knowledge lessons, and then I have gone on to share those lessons with other people, and those other people have been helped by those lessons. And so whenever I am in like the heaviest situation, whenever I'm facing up something that seems impossible, I just think to myself, like, I've done it before, I've learned the lesson, and I've not only learned the lesson, but I've taught something to somebody else. And so if I can do that once, I can do it over and over and over again. And it doesn't matter because nothing is insurmountable because I've always had the faith, the courage, the bravery to overcome things. And I've had that because I've done it.
What are illusions in your life?
Oh, perfection, perfection. That's my biggest illusion. That's my biggest illusion. And honestly, if I were like a tragic hero, like, or like one of those heroes they wrote about in those epic poems a long time ago, like the Odyssey, perfectionism would be my downfall. It would be the thing that like makes this tragic hero come crashing down, because it is an illusion. And even though I know it's an illusion, I still sometimes fall into the trap of chasing that illusion because it looks so good. It's like, you've been in the desert and you finally see a mirage of a waterfall and then you start running towards it and you realize, holy crap, this is not real. And that's honestly the biggest illusion of my life. I feel like I've shattered a lot of illusions for myself in order to become like bigger, brighter, amazing, and all of that. But like that illusion, oh, I gotta keep taking a hammer to that one because that one really is tough.
I hear you. What have you reassessed in your life, and what did you decide to do differently?
I think the greatest reassessment I ever did was on myself. I think the greatest reassessment I ever did was on myself, and I said, "Whoa, there have been situations where I was just dead wrong. Like I was in the wrong. I was the problem. I was the one that needed to be corrected." And in taking a step back and understanding that we all have those moments where we're wrong and leaning into the fact that like perfectionism is an illusion. So there are going to be times when you are wrong and you have to do something about that. So taking like a whole restock and inventory of myself and allowing myself to see that like yes, I do a lot of good in the world and I try to be this person and I am this person, but I am also this person over here who makes mistakes, who has hurt people, who has done wrong, but I am not defined by the things that I have done. And that was honestly the reassessment, like I guess the whole synopsis of what my whole reassessment of myself was done is that I'm not defined by what people have done to me, the mistakes that I've made, the mistakes that like, I can't take back and I know I was wrong. All I can do now is make amends where I can, if I can, because I've had some amends that I've done where people have been like, get the hell away from me. um, and I've had some amends where people have been like, thank you. I needed someone in my life to apologize to me. And like, we rarely get the apologies that we needed. So I was like, you know what? Ever since I was a kid, I've been like, be the change you want to see in the world. And I have took that to heart. And there's not enough people who apologize when they're wrong. There's not enough people who can say, I'm wrong and I need to do better. And so therefore, I became one of those people. Daily shatter the illusion of perfectionism and that you have to be perfect in order to be worthy of something. You don't. It is the flaws that make you worthy because that is what makes you human. And so that was like the reassessment I took of myself. And I was like, I'm going to carry this with me for the rest of my life. And yeah, that was my biggest and greatest reassessment.
You are a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful person.
Thank you.
Such a pleasure to share time with you.
Thank you.
What deflates you? What gives you hope?
Ooh. What deflates me, I feel like, is when people don't see exactly, if people don't see who they are and why that fits into the larger puzzle of everything. Like, I come across so many people in the work that I do every day. I got my degrees in social work, so the people I just come into contact with every day, and it's like they can't see how creative they are. They can't see how ingenuitive they are. They can't see how innovative they are. They can't see these things. It's because someone has told them or they believed too long that they weren't good enough or they weren't whatever. And it's like we are all here with a purpose. Every single one of us is here with an individual, unique purpose. And if we take a step back and look at the whole picture, we realize that each of those individual puzzles makes up something bigger than us. And I was watching a comedian the other day, and he was talking about the suicide rates and all this other stuff. And he was like, and look at the world. Y'all left, and it didn't get any better. And so it was like, you should have stayed. You should have stayed. And it was funny and encouraging at the same time. It's so weird. I was like, ha ha, but also what?
It's like,
Like it was a thing because it was so true because each of us has something that the world needs. And when people can't see that they have something that the world needs, it breeds something inside them that allows, hatred and bigotry to flow through them. And so it's like getting people to see that is what the opposite of that question is what gives me hope. When someone says to me, you've changed my life, or something you said made me think about something deeper, and now, whoa, like all of this stuff has been coming to me, and I'm unlearning and I'm relearning, and all of this other stuff is happening. like that's what gives me hope. Like I feel like I'm called to bring a message of you are important, you are worthy, even if you make mistakes, even if you're dead wrong, you know, it's okay. And so like that's what gives me hope when people realize and see that not only their uniqueness, but how it fits into the larger piece of the puzzle. That's what gives me hope.
How have you evolved and how have you not evolved?
I've evolved in that that would not have that I wouldn't have been saying things like that 5 years ago. Like I definitely evolved over the last 5 years in really trying to um unpack, put down, unlearn all of the shame that was given to me because of things that have happened to me. And so I was walking around with all this shame and doubt and all of this stuff. And like, I realized that it was weighing me down. And that's part of what was even more making me make mistakes towards people because I had been hurt by people. And I was just carrying that around. I was carrying the shame, the doubt, the fear, the everything around. And so I decided for myself that it was time for this to stop. Like I had to stop because I was hurting myself and I was hurting people around me, and I couldn't do that anymore. So I decided that in that moment that I was going to stop doing that. And I think that's a way in which I've really evolved. I think a way in which I haven't really evolved, even with all of that. I feel like I'm still working on being petty. I'm still working petty. Like there was this someone told me this one time, and it was like there's this ancient Chinese proverb that says, "When you seek revenge, dig two graves." And honestly, I've always said this to people. I was like, "Oh, there's this ancient Chinese proverb that says, when you seek revenge, dig two graves." And I'm always like, and I'm okay with that. And I'm okay with that. And that's my problem. That's where I feel like, I could probably step up my evolution game in this area of my life because I don't need to be this petty, but the situation calls for it. I feel like I could be petty.
Got it. Wow. Thank you for your honesty and vulnerability and wisdom. It's amazing. Um, what do you wish you knew earlier in life? And what have you learned now that you could never have learned at a younger age?
Ooh, now that's a question. I guess I wish because honestly, I've always been sort of like a deeply profound thinker, even as like a child. Like even looking back, I was just like, damn, I was a serious little thing. Like what the like I was really serious. And so like I think I wish I would have known. There's a song called by Pink called All I Know So Far. And it in the song it just talks about how like people can tell you that this is the right way to live your life, but at the end of the freaking day, you're the only one who gets to decide that. Yes, there are things that you can do and paths that you can take that may lead you this way or more readily lead you this way or more readily lead you that way. But it is absolutely up to you how you spend your life. And I think I wish I would have known that sooner because if I had have known that, and maybe I would, maybe I wouldn't, I don't know, I probably wouldn't have gone on to like get all these master's degrees and not be really using them because I would have known that like it's my life and I get to decide where I go, what I do, who's in it, who isn't, all of that kind of stuff. I wish I had known that earlier because, like, I feel like it would have allowed me to maybe learn more lessons earlier because there are stages of life that everyone goes through. And I wish I would have known at all of the stages of my life, like, I get to pick. There have been times in my life where I can see clearly like this decision led me to a very different life. Like when I was in high school, I played varsity basketball all I played basketball since third grade, but then I played varsity basketball starting in ninth grade. I was a starter on varsity. And everyone was like, oh, you're a starter on the varsity basketball team. And the ninth grade, like you've essentially made it. And it just wasn't I I didn't like it. It wasn't me. And then my senior year, everyone was like, oh, basketball tryouts are around the corner, basketball tryouts are around the corner. And I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to audition for theater instead.
Wow.
I think I'm going to audition for theater instead. And I auditioned for this pirate show that my, I think it was called Treasure Island. I think it was called Treasure Island that my school was putting on. And I fell in love with theater and ended up getting one of my degrees in it, you know? So it was like, it was one of those things that changed the trajectory of my life. And I wish I had someone to tell me, hey, it's okay that you're choosing theater. It's okay that you want to go a different route with your life. It's okay. So I really just wish I would have been able to like know even sooner that I can make my own choices and live my own life.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And then what have you learned now that you could never have learned at a younger age?
To decenter romantic relationships. My whole life, I feel like I have been like, oh, relationship, 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 relationship. And it wasn't until a few years ago when I was like, you know what? I've been chasing after a relationship my whole life. And honestly, boring. Um, so I want to do something different. And so that year that I decided, you know what? I'm decentering romantic relationships. That year, I staged managed a production at my local community theater. I went to Busch Gardens, Tampa, in Florida. I went to New York City to see Phantom of the Opera after it or before it closed off of Broadway after 35 years. Like the day I decided to decenter romantic relationships was the day I decided to start living. The day I got, you know, I met more friends, the day I did all of these, or not that day, but like that day decided all of those different things. And you could not have told 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, all of those, you could not have told me that. Like if I would have been like to me younger, decenter your romantic relationships, have fun in life, don't worry about that. I would have been like, no, I'm gonna get a man. And it's just like, first of all, girly, I got some news for you that is gonna hit you real hard. But also, I think you might want to decenter romantic relationships just to have fun and have fun. I did.
What early life experiences limit your ability to see what is possible?
Um, I think my childhood with my adoptive parents and never seeing my mother again. I saw my mother for the first time or for the last time when I was 3 years old. I'm 30 now. I haven't seen her in 27 years. And my adoptive parents were not, they just, I always felt like they hated me. They didn't really want me there. And they would say things that would damage my self-esteem and my feelings of self-worth. And for a long time, that clouded how I viewed myself. I viewed myself through those eyes. And then one day I saw something that said, why are you seeing yourself through the eyes of someone who never saw you? And I actually ended up cutting ties and cutting contact with my adoptive parents after that. I got back into therapy and one of my foster mothers, because I was in foster care and then I was adopted. One of my foster care mothers who really wanted me to go back home to my biological mother. So she was always doing everything she could to go so that I could get back to my biological mother. But my adoptive parents really kind of made me, they're like, you can't think of her as your mother anymore. Like, we're your parents now, we're your family. None of that other stuff matters anymore. And so when I was about 26 years old, I had cut my parents off for the very first time. And I said to myself, you know, I said to them, when I was growing up, you used to literally tell me that my mother gave me up because I was worthless and that she didn't love me. And when I was 26 years old, my foster mother sent me a letter from my biological mother. She had wrote one letter to me and one letter to my parents. And in the letter to my parents, she said, listen, my daughter is destined for great things. She is strong willed. She is powerful. And I know one day she's going to be famous. Like, I just know it. And, like, yes, she's strong willed, but children are people too. And all you have to do is reason with her because she's a reasonable person. And I remember sitting there with the letter in my hand, and I remember like sobbing, uncontrollably sobbing, because it was like my whole life, this woman had been my enemy. My biological mother had been my enemy. My mother told me she gave me up. My mother told me she thought I was worthless. My mother told me she didn't want me. And all of these things, because I had a mother who was telling me that, and because the mother who gave birth to me was telling me that, I thought I had no sense of self-worth or anything like that. But getting that letter from my biological mother was like, was literally like, it was no longer a mirage or anything. Like, nothing was wrong with me because I was a very strong-willed child. I was a very strong-willed child. And my mother saw that and she said, good. She said, good, good. And so, like, that's one of the things, that's like one of the like things that really shaped my inability to see my own infinite possibilities and my own like creative being, my own anything. It really kept me from seeing that until I remembered that my parents, when I was young, gave me a book. And that book was called The Eagles Who Thought They Were Chickens.
Hmm.
And the book was all about this eagle hatchling who had landed in a chicken coop. And he was like, guys, I think I'm going to fly. I think I'm going to fly. And all the chickens were like, shut up, stupid. Chickens don't fly. Chickens don't fly.
Yeah.
And then one day he got up on the chicken coop and flew away. And it was all about, like, as a kid, I didn't realize this, but now as an adult, I realized that, like, there's going to be a lot of chickens around trying to tell you that you're a chicken. But if you know you can fly, then fly. And after I got that letter from my mom, I was like, fuck it, I gotta fly. Like, I gotta get out of here. And so that's really what, like, my like early childhood stuff that really shaped some not so wonderful things that I saw in myself.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I'm so happy that that became clear later.
Yeah, me too.
Wow. When do you seek certainty and how do you handle uncertainty?
Um, I seek certainty in like everyday things, like just keeping a nice routine. Like, it just helps, even if it's just the routine to just start the day and end the day. I know that I'm starting my day the same way and I'm ending my day the same way. And no matter what happens in the crazy chaos of 12 hours in between that time, same in the morning, same at night. And that really helps keep me grounded. Before, when you would ask me how I handled uncertainty, I'd just be like paralyzing fear and sobbing and nothing. I don't know. Um, but now, like, I was in therapy for about a year and a half, 2 years, and my therapist was like, I feel like the problem with uncertainty in you is, I understand you went through trauma, anxiety of things, you don't know what's going to happen, you don't know. And so I get it. And she was like, but I feel like you're betting on the uncertainty. And I was like, what do you mean? And she said to me, you're not betting on yourself, you're betting on the uncertainty to win. So you're not betting on the fact that you are strong, you are funny, you are talented, you are beautiful, you are courageous, you are all of these things. You are not betting on that getting you through whatever the uncertainty is. You're betting on the uncertainty wiping out all of that. And so I was like, girl, whatever I'm paying you, it's just not enough. And so I was like, oh my gosh. So whenever uncertainty does come in my life now, I remember my therapist saying to me, you cannot bet on the uncertainty. You simply just cannot bet on the uncertainty. You have to bet on yourself. And so that is how I handle uncertainty. I bet on myself. I know to myself that I am strong, I am brave, I'm hardworking, I'm dedicated, I'm all of these things. And no matter what comes, because it's uncertain, I'm betting on those things.
You are incredible.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you so much
you.
for sharing yourself on this. Amazing. What mistake do you make over and over again?
Let's see. Does buying a bag of spinach and putting it in the refrigerator and never eating it ever count? Because I'm pretty sure there's a bag of spring mix right now waiting to be eaten or looking at me like, but no, but that is one mistake that I make all the time. Um, I think, oh, I don't know because there are mistakes. Like when I do make mistakes that I feel are like carry more gravitas or more weight to them, I try not to make that same mistake again. Like especially if it's harming myself or someone else, unintentionally or intentionally, whatever. I try not to remake that same mistake again. But I feel like one mistake that I keep making is thinking that like is my mindset sometimes. Sometimes my mindset isn't the enlightened, wanting to do better, be my highest self type of mindset. It's more of the I want to give into my baser human urges of revenge or whatever it is at the time. I feel like sometimes I'm just like, sometimes the mistake is thinking that I have to be perfect and I cannot be human. And sometimes making the mistake is knowing better and being human anyway.
When do you take a metaphorical bow?
Um, honestly, whew, whew. I have been doing a lot better at taking my metaphorical bows and giving myself pats on the backs and round of applause because I realized that no one really did that for me. And when I decided that I was going to be the parent that I needed to my inner child, to myself, when I decided that, I was not playing many games. Like when I say I reparented the hell out of myself, I read parenting books, I did all of this stuff because I was like, oh my God, I don't want to say bad words, but I was like, oh my God, they messed me up. Like I really got to fix some stuff. And so like I head first into that. I was like, oh, I gotta do something different. And so I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question one more time?
You answered it perfectly. If you want to say more, you
Okay.
can, but you answered it beautifully. When do you take a metaphorical bow? And you answered it in this beautifully.
Okay, perfect then.
What smell brings you back to a special moment in your past?
Oh my gosh. So I have this olfactory sense thing where honestly I can smell something and just be transported back to a memory. Like there's times where I'll be outside, let's say in like late October, and it's like a light rain, it's cloudy and all of that. And I'll smell the air and I'll be like, oh my God, it smells like a Scholastic Book Fair in 2003. That's the sense that I get. And I'm instantly transported back to the time where I'm like looking through all the books at the Scholastic Book Fair. It's cold and rainy outside, but I'm in school and stuff like that. So like that happens to me a lot because like I have that like olfactory thing where it's like it will remind me of a memory even if I don't want it to. It will remind me of a memory, but like that's one of my favorite memories is like the Scholastic Book Fair. So like that's one of the memories.
Sweet. What problems do you have now that are the same problems you've had for your whole life?
Whew. Um learning to trust myself, learning to see my own worth, learning to bet on myself and learning to keep the faith.
When have you encountered revisionist history?
all the time. Um, Most recently when I was talking to my parents, and it's like, oh, I don't remember that. And it's like, probably because it was traumatic for me and just another Tuesday for you. Um, but like that's probably when, like, the last time I talked to my parents and I tried to have a conversation about what happened and why I stopped talking to them in the first place. Because I stopped talking to them for about 4 years. I needed to do some healing on my own, and I thought, I can't do it with the people who gave me all this trauma. So I was like, y'all gonna have to back up. So I went to therapy, I did all of this stuff, and then I like reconnected with them. And I realized that nothing had changed because those same things that they were doing to me when I was a kid, they were doing to me as an adult. And like, I'm like, you got away with it because I was a kid and I didn't know any better. But now, honey, honey, no, no, you can't do that. Like, you can't do that to me. And so then that is a time.
Yeah. What story do you want to be remembered by?
Mm. In 2022, I went to New York City. I'm a huge theater nerd, so I went to New York City to see Phantom of the Opera before it closed on Broadway because it's the longest running show in Broadway history and it's closing. Like, it's been on for 35. I had to go see it.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, it's also the first Black woman to ever play Christine in that 35-year run. So I was like, I doubly have to go see it. So the trip starts off with four of us, but we all know how group trips go. So it starts off with four of us and it ends up with two. But there were still four tickets to see Phantom of the Opera. So my friend and I are in New York. We're having lunch at the museum, the Metropolitan Museum of Modern Art. Yeah, the MoMA. And so we're just sitting there and we're having dinner or having lunch, and someone is sitting like right next to us. The tables are kind of close. And we just naturally start getting into a conversation with them because we realize we're both from the South. And it's just different. You talk to people when you're from the South. You don't like I brought my girlfriend who's from Dover, Delaware, and she's like, even it was so different for me because like people in the South, they say hello, they speak, they have random conversations with strangers. That's what we do. And so we were talking, and they were just like, oh, we're up from Florida. This is me and my daughter, getting to know each other. And so the mom is just like, oh, yeah, we wanted to come see a show on Broadway, but we went to go price tickets at the box office at Broadway. And I was like, baby girl, why would you do that to yourself? No, who can afford that? Like, who can afford that? And so she was like, she's getting teary eyed because like, the girl's father, something had happened, and she didn't really get into that, but she was saying that like her daughter and her were there for like a girls trip. Like, this was the dream trip. They wanted to go to New York. Like, they wanted to be in Manhattan and see Times Square. Like, this was their trip. And so she's talking about how she can't see Lion King on Broadway, and she's sad. And so my friend who's with me at the time, we look at each other and we're like, come see Phantom of the Opera. Like, this, like, not only are you going to Broadway, but you're like experiencing Broadway history. And so she's like, are you sure? And I'm like, duh, we're sure. Like me and my friend Amanda are also like, theater nerds and all this stuff. And I met Amanda doing community theater. So we're like, are you kidding me? Of course, come with us. And so, she's like, okay, well, how much are the tickets? Like, what can we do? And we're like, girl, if you don't just show up at the box office, like, what the heck? And so we're like, this is Phantom of the Opera. And if we have the chance to like bring in more people into theater, we will, because we are huge theater nerds. And so we ended up all going to see Phantom of the Opera together. And it was a long show, of course, but at the end, they were just so grateful. I still get a text from her every now and again just to say, I hope you're taking care. all that kind of stuff. But like, I would love to be remembered for that story because like that's the type of stuff that I always do. Like, if I have the opportunity to like bless someone else's life, there's no I just can't not do it. I just can't not do it.
It's beautiful. It's amazing. That makes you believe in a higher power, no? Like,
Yes.
like
Yes, it does.
those moments. Wow.
Yeah.
When did you start needing outside input to validate your inner experience?
I think the better question for me was when did I stop needing that? But I feel like I started needing it or started to notice I needed it more when I was in my late, like say let's say like 15 to 25. That huge chunk of my life, I sought a lot of external validation and a lot of external validation in negative ways. And like to negatively reinforce what the already warped and like dumbed down version of myself that I saw. Like I kept seeking experiences and validation that would say, yes, this is who you are, and this is why you deserve all the bad things and stuff like that. And that huge chunk of time from 15 to 25 would probably be when I needed the most external validations.
And then what changed? How did you get to this new spot?
I was like, fuck all these people. Oh, sorry. I it was what I realized, what I actually realized was like a lot of people, I wasn't like completely struggling to make ends meet or anything like this, but things were hard. Like life was hard. And so I was like, I'm not about to make it harder by caring what other people's opinions of me are when they're not paying any of these bills and life is hard. Like, you want to pay a bill, maybe I'll listen, but until such a time, like, I don't have time for other people's opinions of me. I don't have time because I let it slow me down already. I feel like I wasted so much time already listening to what other people had to say about me and then making myself into that person so I could live up to whatever perception, good, bad, great, horrible, whatever perception it was. I needed to live up to it because that's what people's perceptions of me were. And so I was like, oh God, this is going to drive me crazy. This is going to drive me crazy because I went on TikTok during the pandemic, like a lot of us. Um, and I ended up with over 300,000 followers. So I was like, it will literally kill me if I try to appease 300,000 freaking people. So I was like, no, 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 no. This has to stop and it has to stop now. We've got to get to the root cause of why you do it and we've got to tell it to shh, no more, no more. Because like we're obviously meant for big things. And if we allow ourselves to be brought down to be whatever by anybody's good, bad, ugly, horrible, wonderful, whatever, anybody's opinion of me, mm-mm, mm-mm. And especially when I got back into my own faith and like my faith espouses that it doesn't matter what literally anyone says because I created you and therefore I am the one who gets to say who you are and who you aren't. And so I was like, say less. And I went on to just be like, if that's how you feel about me, that's how you feel. Please keep that. Because I say to everybody, people are going to tell you I'm the best thing that ever happened to them. And people are going to tell you I am the worst thing that has ever happened to them. And I need you to believe both of them. I need you to believe both of them. Because that's just simply how it is.
Fascinating. I almost have a follow-up question. I'm not quite sure the wording, which is like, so to me, the change for you happened because the clarity of how wise it was to trust your inner experience and have a spiritual relationship. Is that right?
Yes.
Got it. Wow. Beautiful. Cool. When do you want consistency and when do you want variety?
I feel like I'm always funny because I'm like, I don't like drama in my own life, but I will pull up some popcorn, a seat, and a drink for drama in anybody else's. I'm like, yes, absolutely.
Oh, it's hilarious.
Keep it as far away from me as possible. But like when other drama is happening, I'm like, because it's like, I love it. I see consistency in my own life. Like, I keep a pretty regular routine. I don't do anything like every single day. But like there are times when I feel like I need to go somewhere. Like there are times where I feel like I need to be beside the beach so I can just close my eyes, listen to the waves and the seagulls, feel the hot sand in my feet, and that's what I need to be. That's where I need to be. And then there are just some times where it's like I'm feeling the need to go ride a roller coaster and eat, a fried turkey leg and some other stuff. Like I'm feeling the need to just for adventure. And so, like, pretty normally, pretty regularly, I'm just like low key. But like that year that I decided to decenter romantic relationships, I was ready for adventure. I was ready to travel. I was ready to do all of these different things. And it was because I finally realized, like, just I'm worth it. I'm worth it, I'm worth the adventure. I'm worth, taking risks. I'm worth making mistakes and still loving myself. I'm worth it. And so on my day-to-day life, I'm just like, I just want a cup of coffee and a nap at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'm good. But every now and again, especially in the summer months, because I live intentionally by the seasons, or at least I try to live intentionally by the seasons. So in the summertime, I'm outside, I'm doing all this stuff and all of this. And then in fall, I'm preparing for the winter. I'm getting my harvest ready. I'm doing all this stuff. And then in the wintertime, don't ask me to come outside. Don't ask me to come outside. I am a bear, okay? I am hibernating. Leave me alone because and I need that because in the summertime, every single day. And so it's like in the summertime, I'm more inclined to adventure. And in the wintertime, I'm more inclined to be like, leave me alone. I have a cozy blanket.
What depths have you descended to, and how did you bounce back?
Ooh. So there is I believe it's a Buddhist teaching that says, seek the headwaters of the river of your pain. And I don't know if I'm crazy or just like really want to like do better, but I was like, okay, it's like, okay. And so when I did that, I had to sink to some lows, to some incredible lows. I had to come face to face with all of the pain that I never felt as a child. And I felt like I kind of owed it to my inner child now. I felt like I owed it to my younger self to process this pain and be better because that made me into the adult that would have protected my younger self. That made me into the adult that I always knew the adults around me should have been. And so it was like the least I could do for the child who survived all of that was to process it and make sure that no one ever felt that kind of hurt at the hands of me. And if I had hurt someone in that way, that I went back and made amends for it. And so I think one of like an example of it is just like having to face up the fact that this woman who said she was my mother was saying all of these awful things to me and bullying me constantly. And it was like, yeah, as a person, I knew that that wasn't right. Yeah, like obviously that's not okay. And like to say that to a child, just it's horrifying. And so I got that, but that was the intellectual part of it. What I had to do was look at that situation and really honestly feel what it felt like to have someone you trusted betray you in such a way as that. And in feeling that and crying those tears, I tried never to be that person who would do that to somebody else. And I can't say that I've never hurt someone in that way. And I can't say anything like that. But what I can say is that in realizing that I may have done that, I was like, oh, I have to apologize because this feeling right here is something I can't even handle. So if I've done this, oh no, I know why, but I'm not excusing the fact of my behavior. I'm holding myself accountable with grace because that's what accountability is. It's saying, okay, you're human. You made a mistake, however big. and you need to fix it. And that's what accountability is. And so I went all the way down into the depths of the sadness. I cried. I asked why. I said, what did I do wrong? Like, I did all of these things for myself. I sought the headwaters of the river of my own pain, and I cleaned all of my wounds in it. And I sat there and I stitched myself back up with all of the love and kindness and compassion and empathy that I had deserved all along. And said to myself, like, just because you have this scar here, just because we've cleaned this wound and now you have a scar, does not mean that you are not worthy. You have now survived something. You now, can teach and, let other people know that no matter how deep the scar is, if you go and clean it in that river, if you seek the head source of that river, you can clean that wound, stitch yourself up, and just remember that you have come from something, and just remember it in your actions with yourself, in your actions with other people. And that's how, things get better, is that we realize things like that. So I've sunk to many a times, I've gone into the depths of things like that and cried and screamed and done what I needed to do so that I could process that pain and move through it.
Yeah. Wow. What decisions did you make in life that served you in the past that no longer serve you?
Hmm. I think I did a lot of running in my past. It didn't matter from who, where, what, when, why. I did a lot of running away from problems, away from people, away from greatness, away from all of these different things. I just did a lot of running. And I did a lot of running because it was uncertainty and I was scared. But then came a time where I realized that, one, I didn't have to bet on the uncertainty. And two, I like I could develop curiosity around things instead of a fear of it. I could develop a curiosity around why this was, why it was, and why I was feeling this way, or whatever it was. I could develop curiosity. And I thought to myself, why don't I why am I not curious? Because that was another therapy session. It was like, why am I not curious then? And so it was like, my whole life, and everybody's whole life probably, we have heard that saying that's like, curiosity killed the cat. Curiosity killed the cat. And it wasn't until I was like probably 26, 27 years old that I heard the full and complete thing, like that full and complete saying, which was, curiosity killed the cat, but satisfaction brought him back. And I was like, I was so in that moment, I was like, well played, well played. And so I was like, okay, so if I develop a naturally curious attitude towards uncertainty and I bet on myself that I can get through whatever it is, then I don't need to run as much. I can take time to assess the situation. I can take time to heal and mend with people and understand that, like, people aren't perfect and all of this other stuff. And I think that running for a long time really suited me and really was beneficial. And I think it came to a point, especially when I was ready to settle down and do more like grounded things, it didn't serve me to be that kind of way. Not all the time, at least.
Yeah. What tiny change had a major impact?
In 2017, I was in my grad program, I was in my master's program. And as a social worker, I had gotten my bachelor's of social work, and now I was in my master's of social work program. And so in those programs, they heavily push you towards being a therapist. They heavily push you towards being an LCSW, getting licensure, all that kind of stuff. They heavily push you towards that. And it just wasn't for me. I didn't want to be a therapist. I
Wow.
didn't want to be a therapist. And so I was like, they had always told you, oh, social workers can go anywhere and do anything. And even the stuff that social work was doing, like stuff that they were saying social workers could do, just still just didn't feel right to me. And so one day, one of my professors says, have you ever thought about going the macro, the more like communities and world-based social work than individual social work, like client direct services social work? And I was like, I don't even know what that looks like, baby girl. And so she was like, come take my community organizing class, because she was a community organizer. So she said, come take my community organizing class. I took her class. I switched my concentration from micro licensed social worker, whatever it was name, to the macro track of social work. And it changed the complete trajectory of my life,
Wow.
completely changed the trajectory of my life, to the point where I have testified in front of elected officials. I have, like, it changed my life to the point where I started working in politics and community organizing and the political realm and everything like that. It got to the point where, like, I was meeting with presidents and I was meeting with governors, and I was in all of these different places because I was, you know, community organizing and stuff like that. And so I was working with politicians. So my job for the last 5 years was to empower communities to take action when legislators were making laws that directly affected them. So it was more state and local oriented because those laws are going to affect you like tomorrow, as opposed to Congress whenever they can get their crap together. That's them. But your state and local people, they're making laws for you every day. And so they were, we cared about this one particular issue. So we were like, oh, this is how you can make it known to legislative officials and stuff like that. And so, I went on to start working with more and more elected officials and stuff like that. And that tiny change from just switching from micro social work to macro social work was a huge turning point in my life.
That's amazing. This might be similar answer, but what wave took you for a ride?
Honestly, there have been a lot of ways that I'm like, which way? Let's see. I think it was just a lot of small decisions throughout my life that I can see now, like just looking back, that just was like, oh, this was tiny at the time, but huge as like a result. Like, I think what took me for a huge ride was TikTok,
Oh, wow.
was making a TikTok and going on this like journey. Because one day, and this is not an exaggeration, this is not a joke, this is so real. One day, I said something on TikTok, and overnight, I went from having 600 followers, because my goal was 1,000 followers on TikTok. That was my goal. I knew I was going to be big time if I got just 1,000 followers. I knew I was going to be big time. I went to sleep one night with 600 followers, woke up to 14,000 the next day. And I was like, holy shyster. Like, and it rocket propelled everything in my life. As like becoming a TikTok creator, like just rocket propelled me into so much stuff. Like, there are all these people who suddenly wanted to talk to me about my expertise. Like, I had essentially been training to be a therapist for years. And I decided I didn't want to do that. But I had all of this knowledge that I was going to turn into stuff for my clients anyway. So I created that on my TikTok.
Wow.
And it was like, boom. And suddenly people were like, come on my podcast and talk to me. You should write a book. All this other stuff was happening to me. And like, it not only just like stuff like that, but like I came out as a result of TikTok. Like, all of this stuff happened to me as a result of just being like, I don't feel like we talk about mental health the way that we should. And I don't feel like we handle things the way that we should. And this is why we don't handle things the way that we should. And this is why, and it was just like, people were like, okay. And I remember getting my first 1 million views video, um, because I started a series called Facing Hard Truths because my therapist made me face the hard truth, and Misery Loves Company. So, that was the full title of the series. Uh, and so I would go on to like just like say these hard truths that I had learned as a result of therapy. And I was like, yeah, it made me freaking miserable for a while. But as a result of it making me miserable, it made me better. And so TikTok, I gotta say, hands down, was the wildest ride I have gone on.
Wow.